8:07 here on the great WRKO and now on 93.7 HD2. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868. You can always text us 680-680. This was a story that actually broke last week. However, because we had the Justina Pelletier rally and we were raising money for the troops in Cape Cod, just didn't have time to get to it. But it's a very important story. Why? Because now, again, there is another major damaging piece of information, another important document revealing that the White House deliberately lied and tried to politically cover up the terrorist attack that killed 4 Americans on September 11, 2012 in Benghazi. According to House Oversight Chairman, Congressman Darrell Issa, there is a classified email that he is urging the White House to declassify. They will never declassify it because it is another damning indictment of what the White House did. And according to this email that Darrell Issa has seen, it now appears that the White House, within several hours of the attack, now remember, this is a very key point. When the attacks on Benghazi took place, this lasted for over 8 to 10 hours. The attack didn't just take place in 20 minutes. Within the first couple of hours, as the attack is taking place, the compound is on fire. Al-Qaeda terrorists have now overrun the compound. They are firing rocket-propelled grenades. You have American personnel trapped inside. There is smoke, mayhem, ammunition, gunshots, mortar fire everywhere. Did the dear leader call for air support? Niet. Did he call in the Marines? Niet. Did he reach out to the base that was there right off of Croatia that could have sent in fighter jets within an hour? Niet. There was a team ready in Tripoli, just an hour away, ready to come in and rescue our boys. Did he call them in? Niet. But what did Obama and his political cronies do? I swear to you, they reached out to YouTube. They didn't call in the Marines. They didn't call in for air support. No. But according to this email, within the first couple of hours, they called out to YouTube. And why did they call out to YouTube? Because they said they wanted to bring down the supposed anti-Muslim video that they were claiming had sparked the protests that was, they said, led to the attacks in Benghazi. This is unbelievable. Now I know why the White House wants to keep this thing classified. You've got American men and women under assault. Ambassador Chris Stevens is already missing. He will later end up dead, dragged through the streets like a dog. Sean Smith, dead. 2 other Americans, Ty Woods, Glenn Doherty, dead. And his first response was to orchestrate the political cover-up? Literally one of his first actions, as he's been being bombarded by calls from our CIA station chief, from Gregory Hicks in Tripoli, from State Department officials, real time on cameras, where everybody's saying, this is terrorism, this is Ansar al-Sharia, this is Al-Qaeda. And this guy is already thinking about how to deflect blame? Now remember, the White House has claimed ever since then that it wasn't them that said it was an anti-Muslim video. It was the intelligence. It was the intelligence talking points. And that this was gathered impartially, objectively, over a 24, 48-hour period. They weren't the ones who said it was an anti-Muslim video. That's been their line from the beginning. It was the CIA. It was the intelligence community. Even though the CIA and the intelligence community have said from the beginning, we never said it was anti-Muslim video. We never said anything to do with protests. This came from the political people in the White House. But let that go. So their lie was, this came from the CIA. We didn't say it was an anti-Muslim video. They said it over a 24, 48-hour period once we got the talking points. Well, now the email shows the very opposite. They were caught lying again. Within 2 hours. Not from the CIA, not from the intelligence community, but from the political people at the White House. Let's reach out to the YouTube. We need a cover story. This is it. Take down the anti-Muslim video. The Pastor John video. And what is remarkable, what is amazing to me, is that now they have been caught, now literally with the hand in the cookie jar. What does the Washington Puffington Post? What does the Huffington Puffington Post? What does the New York, aka the Liberal Times? What do all the media defenders of the president, what do they have to say for themselves? But that just proves their story. They really believed there was an anti-Muslim video sparked by a protest sparked by an anti-Muslim video. You see, it corroborates what the White House was saying. No, it doesn't, genius. And you know it doesn't. Because for days they said, we're just gathering the intelligence. It's the intelligence community. It's the CIA. We never came up with the anti-Muslim video. No, that was Mike Morrell. That was the CIA. We made an honest mistake, but it was based off the intelligence talking points. No, it wasn't. Because the intelligence talking points took 48 to 72 hours to draft and get to the president. The talking points they're referring to. The immediate intelligence was Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. Terrorism, terrorism, terrorism. Hell, it screamed terrorism. It was so obvious. What do you think that black flag, the Al-Qaeda black flag, was when they took down the American flag and posted that up? When they're shouting Allahu Akbar, Allah is great. You think this is just how they party in Libya? You think this is how they vent frustration over a non-video video? Here is what happened. And there's now no getting around it. The evidence is now growing. Frankly, now it's irrefutable. That's why the elections this November are going to be so crucial. Because when the Republicans take over the Senate, and now this special select committee has now been convened, and you have Watergate-style hearings into Benghazi, the evidence is now piling up irrefutably that the White House deliberately engaged in the direct manipulation and suppression of intelligence to cover up the terrorist murder of 4 Americans, including our ambassador to Libya. In the middle of an election campaign, where literally the polls were neck and neck. Remember, this was September. This was about 6-7 weeks away from the election. The polls had it a dead heat. The dear leader was running on GM was alive, Osama bin Laden is dead, as he claimed repeatedly. Al-Qaeda's on the run. Basically, I am the new FDR. Just as FDR defeated Hitler's Germany, I have smashed Al-Qaeda. Onward to victory. Victory is ours. When in fact the very opposite was taking place. It was another of many of Obama's monstrous lies. Lie upon lie upon lie. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This guy's like Pinocchio, except it's his ears, not his nose. Did you notice how big his ears were during that campaign? It was like Dumbo. I thought the guy was going to fly away with those big ears. But let that go. They get a call. It's immediate. Leon Panetta tells them, Al-Qaeda has just struck us in Benghazi. General Carter Ham, the head of the U.S. Commander of African Forces, immediately tells the Joint Chiefs of Staff and tells Leon Panetta, it's been Al-Qaeda. We've been hit. It's terrorism. The CIA station chief, we've just been hit. It's terrorism. Greg Hicks, as he testified under oath, right away, Al-Qaeda, terrorism. That's all I kept telling people. Now, Valerie Jarrett and David Plouffe and Dan Pfeiffer, all of them now gather around the president. They're now in the Oval Office. Oh my God, Mitt Romney just won the election. Our re-election is going up literally in smoke. As Benghazi's going up in smoke, the president's re-election is going up in smoke. Dear leader, we've just been caught with our pants down. We said bin Laden is dead. We said Al-Qaeda's on the run. Right, just a couple of weeks ago at the Democratic Convention, you were bragging about it. Now you've been exposed as a fraud and as a liar. If the American people realize they just made a bold, spectacular terrorist assault, we're finished. It destroys our entire narrative for the entire campaign. Mitt Romney will be the next president of the United States. So what do? We need a narrative. We need a lie. We need a cover story. It can't be Al-Qaeda. It can't be Ansar al-Sharia. It cannot be a jihadist terrorist attack. It can't. Oh, you know what? There are protests in Egypt. Yes, this is Wag the Dog. There are protests in Egypt about this anti-Muslim video. Look. Here's what we do. Dear leader, somebody get an adult diaper for the dear leader. Dear leader, easy. We're going to rescue you out of this. Take it easy, dear leader, okay? I know Chris Matthews got his thrill up his leg. Now you got something going down your leg. Easy. Get him an adult diaper. He'll be fine. Dear leader, calm down. You got to do what you got to do. I know. We're going to do it. We're easy, dear leader. You know what? It's an anti-Muslim video. This whole thing in Benghazi, I don't know. And you know how it is. What do Americans know about Libya? What do they know about North Africa? Hey, listen, they were going to go out to protest, have a good time. They didn't like this anti-Muslim video. They bring some camel jerky, some goat milk, and they bring some Kalashnikov rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. That's how they party in Libya. That's how they protest in Libya, okay? These were protests gone awry over an anti-Muslim video. You can even blame the guy who did the video. We'll even say we're defending Islam on this one. Trust me, we'll even look multicultural when the whole thing is over. I like it. Valerie, Dan, David, you do what you gotta do. Call YouTube right now. Mr. President, you think maybe we should call the Marines? Hey, I don't care about them. I got my re-election. Let them die. What do I care? Let them die. That's what took place. Like you tell them to go blank themselves. They probably won't even vote for me anyway. The first thing you do is reach out to YouTube to take down an alleged anti-Muslim video? The question that has never been answered, and it cannot be answered, is why did you not even try to rescue those poor men on that fateful, tragic night? Maybe you wouldn't have saved Sean Smith and Ambassador Stevens. Maybe. Although we'll never know. But Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty, they would be alive today. They stood at that CIA annex and then went down to the compound and defended that compound for hours, waiting for the cavalry to come, waiting for the rescue team to come, waiting for the boys to come and bail them out. Yet they never came. I am not going to let go of this story. And it has nothing to do with ratings. Frankly, it doesn't help me with my ratings. Because those men that died on that day deserve justice, and they deserve the truth. And let me tell you something that was told to me at the Justina Pelletier rally. Glenn Doherty's father actually lives here in Boston. Glenn Doherty's father is not well. Glenn Doherty's father is right now in a serious fight for his life. That's what I was told. He is in a hospital hoping to recover. And the one thing he can't get out of his mind is, why did my son have to die? He wants justice. He wants the truth. The victims' families want the truth, and they deserve the truth. Watergate was about the cover-up of a third-rate burglary. Benghazi was about the cover-up of the terrorist mass murder of 4 Americans. The dear leader should be impeached. He must be impeached, and he must be held accountable. 617-266-6868. Obama, you have the blood of 4 dead Americans on your hands. And I'm never going to let you live that down, my friend. This is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. 617-266-6868 is the number. More of your calls next. Welcome back to the Kuhner Report. John, you're up next on WRKO, and welcome. Hello, John. Did we lose John? Okay, who do you want to go to next, Cooks? Dave, you're up next on RKO. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for keeping Benghazi front and center.
Oh, my pleasure, sir.
I want to go back earlier on September 11th when, remember the heat that Romney took for his comments about, I think the core of his statements about the Egypt situation was, look at how fast this administration wants to apologize and make something be about the U.S. It's about us being wrong. That was the thrust of his point. And I think on the timeline that I've seen recently, the apology from the White House actually came out before the protests, which shows that they had this thing up their sleeve for a good reason ahead of time.
Dan, they had to save their boy from being decimated in the November elections. I think there's no question about it. When Benghazi took place, their first reaction was, how do we cover this baby up? Not how do we save him, not how do we rescue him, not let's get at the truth. It was immediately save our boy from a catastrophe in November. That's why I honestly believe Benghazi reveals this president is morally illegitimate. 617-266-6868, because had they not covered up Benghazi, there's no way the dear leader would have won a second term. 8:30 on the great WRKO. We'll continue with this. Also, a lot of other stories. Don't touch that dial. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom. 8:38, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, here on the great WRKO. 617-266-6868 is the number. You know, I gotta tell you, honestly, this is a regime of lies. And it's just one lie after another, after another, after another. Honestly, when they start telling me the time now, I just look at my watch. Because I'm like, nah, they gotta be lying. Well, now, remember, with this regime, nothing is a scandal. Nothing. The IRS, nothing. Benghazi, nothing. Spying on journalists, nothing. The NSA, spying on all Americans, nothing. What's Fast and Furious, nothing. Solyndra, nothing. Obamacare, nothing. Nothing. Our top spy in Afghanistan, maybe one of the most dangerous places in the world, where there is a war going on, where we still have over 30,000 troops who are fighting and dying every day because of the sheer ineptness and incompetence of this criminal gang in D.C., of this criminal regime. was outed and exposed. His cover, they just put a giant target on his back, and everybody...
Tune in this weekend for men...
outed. This woman's like, she's on secret missions all over the world. 000. There's Valerie Plame with a little gun killing terrorists all over the world. She sat at a desk in Langley, for God's sakes. Impeachment. Dick Cheney must go. Scooter Libby had to go to prison. They wanted Bush's head on a platter. She was accidentally, supposedly outed by Richard Armitage, who, by the way, disagreed with the war in Iraq. Disagreed with most of Bush's foreign policy, but let that go. They had an independent prosecutor, a special prosecutor. They hounded the Bush administration for years over the issue. It was one of the greatest scandals, they said, of the 21st century. Suddenly, forget Valerie Plame, our top person in Afghanistan. Nothing. It's the military. They sent us the list, and we just sent off the list, and there were 6,000 names on that list, and all the people meeting the dear leader in Afghanistan, we happened to put the name of the guy in his position. CIA station chief, a.k.a. top spy in Afghanistan. To everybody out there, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, here's his address. You want to kill him? Here's where he is. Downtown Kabul. Go up. Remember, don't take the elevator. It's broken. Take the stairs. They're acting like it's nothing. Nothing is a scandal. Well, now check this out. Okay, as many of you know, on Sunday, thanks to the incredible efforts and generosity of all of you in Kuhner country, we raised about $10,000 in donations and supplies for Cape Cod Cares for the Troops, where we send important needed supplies, toiletries, all sorts of stuff, to our troops in Afghanistan and serving overseas. And I met many wonderful veterans, many of them in wheelchairs, many of them maimed, many of them crippled, many of them who've paid a tremendous price for serving our country and protecting our freedoms and liberties. To a man and to a woman, all they could talk about was the VA scandal. In hospital after hospital after hospital now. Florida, Texas, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, the epicenter. Veterans have been put on secret waiting lists. Up to 6 months, 9 months, even up to a year, being denied the most basic care. In Phoenix alone, 40 veterans have died waiting to be cared, waiting to be taken care of, waiting to be seen. And now we're finding out that this was deliberately done by the VA to cover this thing up, as many of them were lining their pockets with bonuses and pay raises to claim they were treating veterans, when in fact, they just let them there languish. Who cares? You served our country? I don't care. Where's my next bonus? How the hell is this not a major scandal? You serve your country, and you come back with PTSD or traumatic brain injury, or God forbid, your legs are blown off or your arms are blown off, or you have cancer, let's say from Agent Orange in Vietnam, and they're having you wait 6, 9 months, a year, as you desperately need help, as they're rationing care in the VA system. And this was told to Obama and his entire team when Bush left office during the transition. And then there was memo after memo. The Washington Post uncovered multiple memos saying they knew about this problem since 2010. And what did the dear leader do? Nothing. Niet. What did Eric Shinseki, the VA secretary, do? Niet. Nothing. What did Hillary Clinton do? Niet. Nothing. So recently, when asked, if you can believe this, the piranha, Nancy Pelosi, is asked point blank by Ezra Klein, a liberal lefty blogger. Well, the VA. I mean, is it a scandal? The VA, no, he says, the VA scandal. Do you plan to confront the VA scandal? I swear to you. The Piranha says, scandal? What scandal? What? I wouldn't call it a scandal. What's a scandal? This is not a scandal. Don't let this affect their leader going into the midterm elections. No. See, it's like Benghazi. This is not what's a scandal? This is not the long waiting lines. This is Bush. This was Bush. This happened under Bush. This has been going on for decades. Don't say scandal. Ezra, don't say scandal. Scandal means Shinseki must resign. Scandal means their leader's going to get in trouble. Eric, Ezra, you want to lose the elections in November, Ezra? Here is the Piranha Pelosi. I swear to you, God is my witness. Now even saying the VA scandal is not even a scandal. Roll it, Brittany.
What is your position right now on the ongoing scandal in the Veterans Health Administration? What do you think we know about it? What do you think should be done about it?
Well, I think any time that our men and women in uniform are not served in the manner in which they deserve, you could perhaps call it a scandal, because it's scandalous that they're not. Whether it is a scandal with intention and the rest of that, the evidence remains to be seen. But the fact is that they haven't been served worthy of their sacrifice or their role in our country.
I mean, is this incredible? I mean, I'm looking at this, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Any time that our men and women are in uniform and not served in the manner in which they deserve, you could perhaps call it a scandal. I guess, because it's scandalous that they're not. But whether it's a scandal with intention and all of that, well, the evidence remains to be seen. So I don't, is it a scandal? Don't say the word scandal. Say problem. Say difficulties. Say Bush. But don't call it a scandal, Ezra. I look at her. I'm serious. With all the Botox that she's pumped her face with, this woman she's like a fish. The woman cannot close her mouth. She can't smile. I'm serious. I look at her and she's like a freak of nature. All I think is, do you people even know how, her and Jean-Francois, it's the candidate for the, who's got the most Botox? Who's got the most Botox injected in their face? Pepe, Jean-Francois, or our esteemed Secretary of State, or the Piranha Nancy Pelosi? Ooh. Scandal? What scandal? I can't move my lips very much. Ezra, don't do... I mean, my friends, I want you to think about what kind of person you're dealing with. What kind of a regime you're dealing with. You have veterans dying, waiting to be seen. Is this justice? They won't even acknowledge that it's a scandal now. Because like Benghazi, they don't want it to affect the midterm elections? Are they so corrupted by power? Are they so addicted to power that they will put propaganda, they will put everything above basic patriotism and decency? If your mother didn't tell you, Piranha, I'm going to tell you. When you have veterans dying by the dozens, dropping like flies across this entire country because they're waiting for 6, 9 months, even a year, for not getting the basic treatment that they've deserved, that they've earned, that's not just a scandal. That's the mother of all scandals. And you want to know why the Democrats deserve to lose this November? My friends, this is the reason why. When it comes to our veterans, they don't even pretend to give a damn. 617-266-6868. Dan, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, Jeff, you know what I can't understand is why is nobody chasing the angle that possibly the Stevens death was actually deliberate? Because here's what I think. If your house is on fire, you call a fire truck. Automatically. You don't think about it. You don't sit and say, let's watch it burn for a few minutes.
And you're thinking what? Because he knew about the CIA illegally running and smuggling weapons?
Absolutely. He knew that he was the one guy. And the second thing, even if that all happened, wouldn't you at least send the troops in to secure the embassy?
Yes.
Where all that paperwork was going to get disappeared.
Yes.
He had the secrets. He had the secrets to everything that happened in Libya.
Dan, that's why I believe the Democrats are stonewalling desperately.
Of course.
Because if the full truth gets out,
but even the conservative talk show hosts, no one's playing that angle, and it makes such sense. Well, obviously they wanted the guy dead. Now I think obviously the soldiers that were killed, which is terrible, they were collateral, and it's sad to say that, but they let those guys rot, but they wanted Stevens dead up front.
Thank you for that call, Dan. Very interesting. 617-266-6868. Russ, you're up next on WRKO. Welcome, Russ.
Benghazi, response from the queen of the Scumocrat Party. What difference does it make? If you back Hillary Clinton, dead veterans in Benghazi make no difference to you. And, Jeff, let me make one other comment that aggravated me today in today's news. Turncoat John F. and Kerry calls someone else a traitor? You got to be kidding me.
Russ, this guy tells Ed Snowden to come back here, and you have to face the American justice system, do the right thing. Ed Snowden is a traitor. Ed Snowden is a hero. If it wasn't for Ed Snowden, we wouldn't know that our own government has been spying on our phone calls, on our social media, on our texts, on our emails. This man blew the whistle, I believe, on the greatest story of the 21st century. How our ruling class has turned America into a police state. And he's honestly telling us, oh, you're going to get justice in an American court? BS. Bull. It's going to be a kangaroo court where you want to throw this guy in prison for the rest of his life and throw away the key. If I was Ed Snowden, don't you dare come back to the United States, because with these criminal gangsters in power, Ed, they're going to throw you into a gulag or into a FEMA camp if you're not careful. 617-266-6868. Who do you want me to go to next, Brittany? Bruce, you're up next. Thanks for holding, and welcome.
Jeffrey.
Hey, Bruce.
It's just one big chaotic cluster F. And I'm going to quote Nietzsche again. Out of chaos comes order. And we need to step up, and everybody that needs to get their head chopped off needs to get their head chopped off. And even if we got to go with the old Francois Kerry way with the guillotine, just somebody's got to swing it. Pull the pin, get these guys out of office. Let's get our country back into order. And it's just, you see where it's going. And thank God you're out there speaking about it, because they would just sweep it under the rug, point fingers, Bush. All these people do is beat around the bush.
Bruce, let me tell you, you know what the grenade is that's going to blow this entire criminal, corrupt gang? Us, middle America. And you know what the trigger is? Kuhner country. Donna, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Donna.
Oh, hi, Jeff. It was such a great treat seeing you and your beautiful family and Brittany and Cooksey. I love the big hugs from everybody.
Oh, thank you. That was on Sunday at Cape Cod, right, Donna?
Yes, it was.
It was great meeting you and your wonderful husband, Donna.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Listen, the reason why you are the real deal, Jeff, is because you are such a truth seeker, and you don't mess around. You just go right on target, crystal clear. So that's why it makes you the best.
Oh, thank you, Donna.
You bet. I'm not buttering up. I really mean that. Listen, this crap about releasing the names of these guys and then the president blaming the military for it. Once again, this is gross incompetence, or he's lying again. I'm honestly not so sure this was an accident. It's like, oh, whoops, did we release their names? And then in case you terrorists over there in Afghanistan didn't know, here's their names. Did you guys get it? Here's their title and where they are. You know how every time some crap happens, he goes, I just heard about it. Second, I'm outraged and I won't tolerate it. And then third, he says, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I never heard him say, I'm outraged, as fake as it is, or we're going to find out who approved this. They know every stinking thing. And you know what? He's eliminated a lot of leaders who don't agree with them. Ask some of them if they're comfortable taking people's guns from them. Didn't try to save Benghazi, and he campaigned in 2008 on eliminating the abuses and the scandals in the VA. He knew every detail about this. I think he doesn't like the military, and I really question if this release was an accident.
Donna, I think you're onto something. I think there's no question about it. I think he hates the military. I think he knows that most of these veterans vote Republican. Most of them are conservative. He couldn't give a damn if they're dying and rotting away, waiting to get care. And as for our troops in Afghanistan, he stabbed them in the back a long time ago.
Big time. And you know what, people? Don't you dare vote for Hillary Clinton, because she is so much a part of this stuff. They've got to get her on the select committee, and they got to pin her to the wall. So you're going to get more of this if you vote for that woman.
Thank you for that call, Donna. 617-266-6868, 856 on the great WRKO. You're listening to Jeff Kuhner, the voice of the resistance. Welcome back to the Kuhner Report. Mags, you're up next on the great WRKO. Shoot, Mags.
You know how much I love you, Jeffrey. You're the best thing that happened to Boston in a long time.
Oh, thank you, Mags.
And my question is this. How do we know? I mean, I'm not sure. But the President of the United States, which is not my friend, and I know is not yours, I'm wondering, how do we know doesn't have a lead part in Al-Qaeda? How do we know that? After all of this Benghazi stuff and how they're giving guns away and they're doing this and they're doing that, how do we know? Can you answer that for me, Jeff?
Mags, look, I'll tell you this. This is my reading of him. I think he's an anti-American leftist who looks at the Muslim world, like his father, as victims. He's also a cultural Muslim. He grew up as a Muslim. He's admitted this. Both of his fathers were Muslim. So when he looks at Al-Qaeda or when he looks at jihadists around the world, he thinks we have to be compassionate and tolerant and respect diversity. So in the end, he will put his allegiance to the Muslim world and to his anti-American leftism over our troops. And that's why I say regarding our troops in Afghanistan, bring them home now. Because dying for this man is not worth it. 901 here on the great WRKO. Coming up next, heated debate. I actually disagree with Glenn Beck. Were video games responsible for Elliot Rodgers' killing spree? Did video games cause the Virgin Killer? Glenn Beck says yes. I say no. We'll have that discussion. Don't touch that dial. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom.
News at the top and bottom, talk in between.
We shout it and we proclaim it, and this causes people to lose their minds.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
906 here on WRKO AM 680 and now on 93.7 HD2. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Hour 4 of the Kuhner Report. As many of you know, Glenn Beck and I are really in many ways ideological soulmates. We're ideologically simpatico, as the saying goes. Pretty much on almost every issue we agree with because we have a common worldview. So I would say on 99 out of 100 times, I usually agree with Glenn. However, on this one, I disagree with Glenn. Very respectfully, but I disagree. And I want to get your take out there in Kuhner country. As you know, the killing spree in Santa Barbara by Elliot Rodger, American Psycho, a.k.a. the Virgin Killer, has now ignited all kinds of debate Again, the libs are calling for gun control, more gun control. But there's an argument developing on the right, which I think is the more interesting argument and the more profound argument, about the effects of culture and the cultural influences upon many of our young people. And so Glenn Beck on Monday begged Americans to have a real conversation. He wants the country to have a national conversation about the ramifications of video games on our nation's children. And his argument, essentially, I think, is this. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think pretty much this is his argument, from what I understand and from what I've heard. That this is really the first generation in human history where so many people have grown up more comfortable in virtual reality than actual reality. They have iPhones, iPods, computers, video games. There's no socialization process taking place. They're basically living in a virtual world. And his fear is that slowly but surely the brains of many of our children who are playing hours and hours, 4, 5, some of them 6, 7 hours a day on video games, or staring at computer screens, or watching television, or on the iPods, the iPhones, that Glenn believes they're being rewired. And he believes this is a major reason, or one of the factors, behind all of the school shootings, the killing sprees, the massacres that have been plaguing this country now for the last 15, 20 years. And so he's begging Americans to have a national conversation, in particular parents, to take these video games, these sort of corporate child molesters, out of the hands of their children. For the sake of their children, if you love your child, if you want to save your child, you're going to get a lot of resistance. You're going to get a lot of blowback. The kids are very addicted to these games. They love these games. But he's saying, get them out of the hands of your children. And the reason why he's honing in on this argument is according to the manifesto of the Virgin Killer. The Virgin Killer admits that he did not have a very satisfying social life. He admits that he played a lot of video games, like Adam Lanza also played a lot of video games, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And according to Elliot Rodger, on the YouTube videos that he posted, he admits that he filled a void in his life with video games. Not having the affection of women, being a virgin, not having sex, being told that he needs to have sex, why isn't he having sex, being rebuffed by woman after woman, he sought solace in video games. And clearly video games are, many of them now are violent. They're bloody. They're full of gore. There's no question about that. The question, though, is this. Are they really the cause of violence? Are they the cause of, let's say, an Adam Lanza or an Elliot Rodger? Are they polluting the minds of our children and making them think now it's acceptable to kill because they're basically being raised and growing up in a virtual reality world where actions don't have consequences, where there is no right and wrong, where you chop off heads, you chop off limbs, you chop off bodies, you kill people, you kill 1,000 a minute. The more you can kill, the better in these video games. And so basically now their sense of right and wrong is being pulverized. Their brains are being rewired by video games. Here is Glenn Beck, in his own words, making his case for America to have a national conversation in the wake of the Santa Barbara killing spree, and saying, you know what, let's look at culture, and in particular, let's look at the tragic, destructive ramifications of video games on our nation's children. Roll it, Britain.
Out of every single mass killing, mass shooting in American history since 1950, all of them...
Except for 2.
Where were the 2? Do you know?
I don't.
They all happened in a gun-free zone.
Mm-hmm.
So
the 2.
Yeah. That's an amazing percentage.
Staggering. That's a staggering amount.
When you have gone off your rocker and you want to kill people, you go to a place where you're not going to be killed first.
That's right. That's right.
It just makes sense.
And he already knew in his manifesto, that he was going to point the gun to himself and kill himself. Well, that's the way you end all video games. If you read his manifesto, he speaks about video games and said, I knew at some point I got this video game and I was playing it, and I knew at some point I had crossed a bridge that I could no longer go back. A piece of me had died inside. Is anybody talking about that? Because this is the conversation we should be happening.
They will not.
They will not talk about it,
talk
especially
about that
in Hollywood.
Because then, by golly, Hollywood would have to accept some sort of responsibility. And
all the films, you can't have it two ways. You say that you can't have anybody smoking on television or in movies because it affects people, but gun violence is totally fine. Mm-hmm. You are also in the business of making all of these video games. The reason why they won't deal with this is because it points the finger directly to them. And I'm not looking for finger pointing. I don't really care. What the discussion that I want is my kids.
Hollywood's also in the business of sexual deviancy. And that's what this guy was all about.
A couple of points. I think Glenn on this one has it backwards. Like I said, I agree with him 99 out of 100 times. Look, if we don't disagree once in a while, what's the point? What's the point of us, even being on this earth? Not everybody's going to agree with you all the time on everything. That's why we have unique personalities, unique minds with a unique perspective. To me, the issue is mental illness. This is where he's right. Glenn is completely right about the gun-free zones. That, he's nailed it to a T. You look at let's just take the recent killings. Let's not go back to 1950, just go back to the recent killings. The Navy Yard shooting, mentally ill. Sandy Hook, Adam Lanza, mentally ill. Elliot Rodger, clearly mentally ill. The Aurora, Colorado shooter, mentally ill. Jared Loeffner, the guy who shot Gabby Giffords, mentally ill. You can run down the list. The common theme throughout all of them is mental illness. Now, psychotic people will do psychotic things. And if your son is severely, violently, mentally ill, take Adam Lanza, or take this guy, Elliot Rodger. Yes, he's going to be playing video games 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Look, let's just take Adam Lanza just for a second, okay? The mother didn't want to deal with Adam Lanza. She didn't want to confront the problem of what her son really had. Just by the way, like Elliot Rodgers' parents didn't want to confront how severe the problem was with their son. So what did Adam Lanza's mother do? Basically, it's almost like a horror story. She threw him downstairs in the basement, almost locked him up, gave him 3 meals a day, and son, just play video games 12 hours a day. And so there he is, and he's there just shooting up people, killing people, chopping off their heads, whatever, carving out their heart, whatever, just cutting them to ribbons, butchering them. Now, if I see my son, like Elliot Rodger, posting YouTube videos saying I want to kill myself, I have suicidal thoughts, I want to kill people around me. He didn't just do this recently. He's been doing this for a couple of years. Son, you need help. No, I mean, you need serious help. Maybe we'll even have to institutionalize you, son. Because it's not normal that you want to kill people. It's not normal that you want to keep killing yourself, thinking of killing yourself. There's something wrong, son. Look, when I grew up, I remember the argument that was made in the 1970s. My father used it against me. I listened to heavy metal. I love AC/DC was my big band. I have a confession to make. I have an indulgence. I have a secret pleasure. I love horror movies. I always say a man has to have one vice. For me, my vice is horror movies. I love horror movies. I love Friday the 13th. I love Halloween, the Blair Witch Project. the more gruesome, the bloodier. I don't know why. I relax. Don't ask me why. It takes my mind away from my kids, my family, my wife, my work, pressures. I see people getting axed, and I swear to you, the Kuhner man just relaxes. I watch almost every good horror movie that comes out of Hollywood. My father honestly thought I'm going to become like some kind of mass murderer. My father was like, what's wrong with you? My father was like, don't watch this stuff. I'm like, Dad, come on, it's just a movie. Take it easy. So in the 70s and 80s, if you remember, it was horror movies. It was heavy metal. It was the violence on television. Remember the A-Team and Rambo, and they were counting how many bullets were fired in a show and how many bodies were being killed. Then it was horror movies and Hollywood and Metallica, and all that was supposed to turn people into killers, into psychopathic murderers. Now it's video games. To me, that's not the issue. Those are cultural symptoms. A person playing a video game for 10, 12, 14 hours a day is a symptom of something much more deeply wrong with that person. Look, think about it, just by their logic. My two nephews now, Jenny tells me, my sister, Jen, I call her Jen, Andrew and Matthew. She says, Jeff, they play this stuff 3-4 hours a day now. I can't get them off of it. So do all their peers. They're not going around killing people. We've had video games inundating our culture now for a couple decades. Now, I don't think the kids should be playing video games. Not because they're going to turn you into an Adam Lanza or an Elliot Rodger. I just think it turns your brain to mush. It's why, for example, I limit Ashton and Ava, they're watching television to 1 hour a day. They love Mickey Mouse. I let them watch the Mickey Mouse Club. 1 hour, that's it. And I even told Ashton, I go, Ashton, you watch more than an hour, it'll turn your mind to mush. He repeats it now. Mind to mush, Daddy. Mind to mush. So, to me, don't blame video games, because by their logic, there should be 6 mass killings a day. With all the video games proliferating in our society, how much kids have been playing it now for 10, 15, 20 years? If video games are truly the culprit, if violence in Hollywood is truly the culprit, there should be 6 Sandy Hooks a day. There should be 10 American Psychos a day. People should be dropping dead and dying left, right, and center. They're not. And the common theme, some play video games, some don't, is not so much video games, it's mental illness. And I think that's the issue we need to address. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Judy, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. I do agree with some of what you're saying, because I just think that mental illness is the key. And I just think that, my kids play video games, and I think that obviously, as you said, there would be massive killings every day if video games really did that to everybody. And I also think people should remember that, sadly, people have been murdered in very gruesome ways since almost the beginning of time. If you think about what happened alone during the Crusades, when how millions and millions of people were killed in the name of religion, and there was no radio, TV, internet, or video games around. It was just human beings doing sick things to one another.
Very
I don't know how you can complain it. I mean, I don't know how you can explain all that, but clearly, obviously guns, should be limited. I think, to, some extent, in my humble opinion, but you can't, this guy had knives too, that kid in California, so you're going to outlaw knives now. It's out of control. So anyway, I just want people to think that before you say outlaw video games, should you limit the time? Yes, but people have been killing one another for millions of years, and Judy, they had very different influences then.
Judy, I think you've nailed it. And here's what I think a lot of us we've lost this concept of evil, of good and evil. Some people are evil, and they do evil things. And I think somehow we want an explanation for everything. Now, clearly, this guy's mentally ill. There's no question about it. And maybe with treatment, maybe it would have happened, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But people always want an explanation. Look, I don't want to go back to Jared Remy, but just as an example, Jared Remy is an evil man. There's no question about it. If you like beating up women and then you eventually slash their throat, you're an evil man. Now, you could look at influences, you can say, but in the end, you're an evil man. People do evil things because there's evil. We have forgotten that in our society. And to me, what is scary, what is frightening, because look, I don't like Hollywood. I don't like much of Hollywood. I don't want my kids playing video games, and if they do, I will limit their time, like an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. But to me, what's obvious is we have unleashed the institutions. We opened up the institutions. And people who could be helped, who, if they did get help, would not, Adam Lanza, if he had help, would not have killed 20 children in Newtown. Period. Full stop. And it's the one issue we don't want to deal with. Will, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Jeff, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So, I'm 26 years old, and, I grew up within this whole video game era in the beginning of it. I played Mario and all that, avid video gamer. But I was still, very athletic, very successful now. And I actually wrote a college thesis about violence in video games. And that the most, not alarming trend, but the overall trend I found is that all of the kids dating back to Columbine, because they tried to blame it on the video game Doom. And that's when I, started connecting the dots that all of these kids had pre-existing social inequities. They didn't have a lot of friends, and that, they all had pre-existing mental illness too. They all had, years of therapy, and then video games have actually become the scapegoat. Now, what it is, people are just basically bunching up video games together. They're saying all video games are bad. It's not true. Now, what it is all these kids that are doing these things, they're playing one particular game called World of Warcraft. And it's your typical game that, like the Simpsons comic book character would play. And they immerse themselves into this basically like a fantasy land because they can't maintain a good life in reality, and their brains are not able to actually correspond to what reality is anymore. That's why they're spending so much time in these fantasy sort of dungeon lands where people don't know that these kids are creep shows. Like, these kids are creeps. I see a lot of these people around, and they're playing these games. And a kid in my college had Asperger's, and he would play World of Warcraft for about 8 hours a day. He ended up failing out of school. It took him 8 years to finally fail out of school because he was playing this game so much. And the kid would get into arguments and fights, and he sort of acted like this kid, thinking that, girls were entitled to like him and things like that. Now, I play Call of Duty a lot. The game, basically, you're an Army soldier and you play online. I play with all my buddies. We're on headsets, and, we're trying to rack up scores. But at the end of the day, a couple hours, we know that this is fake. And it's more of, people just having a contest.
Bingo.
Like, oh, I can hit that, I can do that, I got 23 kills.
Bingo.
But it's the people that don't know and that take pride out of, killing someone. Like, a lot of kids, early on, I found out that kids that like to torture animals, that enjoy, hurting puppies, hurting cats, that is also a link to all these violent behaviors. A sign. Because they have no empathy.
Well, exactly. I see my little kids wanting to kill a cat. I was like, guys, what's wrong? What's wrong with you?
From across the continents or across the streets,
you can plan and understand why things are happening by knowing what's happening.
This is AM 680 WRKO.
9:30 here on WRKO AM 680. Glenn Beck says that video games play a major role. He believes in some of these recent killing sprees. I disagree. What do you say, Boston? 617-266-6868. Are video games to blame? All of your calls. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom.
You have gone off your rocker and you want to kill people, you go to a place where you're not going to be killed first.
That's right. That's right.
It just makes sense.
And he already knew in his manifesto, he already knew that he was going to point the gun to himself and kill himself. Well, that's the way you end all video games. If you read his manifesto, he speaks about video games and said, I knew at some point I got this video game and I was playing it, and I knew at some point I had crossed a bridge that I could no longer go back. A piece of me had died inside. Is anybody talking about that?
Welcome back. 9:38 here on WRKO, 617-266-6868. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. This is one of those rare times that I actually disagree with Glenn Beck. Glenn on his show on Monday made a very interesting argument where he thinks video games and the way they're rewiring the brains of our kids, how so many of our children are now growing up in a virtual reality as opposed to an actual reality, he thinks are now playing a major factor, whether it be in the mass killing in Santa Barbara by the Virgin Killer, or Adam Lanza in Newtown, or in shooting after shooting after shooting. Do you think video games have a direct influence and impact on people committing crimes? I think it's the other way around. I honestly think if you got a child that's playing 10, 12, 14 hours a day of video games and he's mentally ill, it's not the video games, it's the psychosis. I think Glenn is looking at the symptom and not the cause. But I want to hear from you, Boston. 617-266-6868. The text machine is going to burn up. The text machine is, the texts are pouring in. 680-680. This is from 508. Jeff, if you're already a sociopath, then video games are a problem. Bingo. It's not the video games. It's when you put a sociopath with a lot of video games. That's like mixing alcohol and speed. This is from 508. Jeff, different 508. Jeff, Glenn, I love you sometimes, but you know how stupid, progressive, liberal, socialist commies sound when blaming the gun? Yep. That's how you, Glenn, are now sounding blaming the video games. This is from, let me see here. There's a lot. Okay, this is from 617. One that disagrees with me. Jeff, I have to disagree. Unlike movies and music, where your experience is passive, with these first-person shooter video games, it is active. You are participating. You are using different parts of your brains and hard wiring in burning the connections in the mind as all tasks you do over and over again. So he believes it conditions one to violence and doing it over and over again. It's no coincidence that the U.S. military uses these type of simulators to train our troops. Now, it could be a situation, he goes on, where you're predisposed to schizophrenia. It's a bad idea to smoke pot. But when you're doing these video games, he believes it's a threat. This is from 617. So we're getting a range of opinions. Carol, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go.
Yes. Jeff, I believe it contributes to the mental illness of all people and could trigger killings if mentally ill. They can't discern between reality and unreality. There is a school of thought that the subconscious mind can't discern truth from reality or unreality. You can tell yourself you are a genius for over 8 minutes each day, and you will eventually believe it, is one of the schools of thought. Video games and technology can create social retardation, and you don't know how to fit in and become disengaged from society.
So, Carol, you think video games do play a role then, right?
I think it contributes to the mentally ill, and I think it makes the main populace a little socially retarded because they become more involved in these games. And even with technology, all the texting and the, emailing versus the social conversation, you become disengaged from society.
Carol, I gotta say, the first part, I'm not sure I agree with you. The second part, I think you're spot on. Look, I've noticed it. I notice it with interns. Brittany, I have to say, is an exception. I'm not just saying that because she's here. Honestly, she's an exception. I can't tell you how many interns I've met, and many of my students. I noticed this in the late 90s. With all the emailing, the internet, the texting, they have no basic social skills.
Right.
Like Carol, I'll tell you this, literally, I'm not trying to pick on the interns here, and I don't just mean at RKO, at EEI and AAF, everybody at Entercom. They don't shake hands anymore.
Right.
You're meeting somebody for an interview, and they just stand, and they're awkward, and they look down, and you stick your hand out like, hi, nice to meet you, and they're kind of they don't know what to do, and they're awkward, and they kind of give you their hand, and it's a weak handshake, and it's bizarre. And, it's things like this I'm noticing. You're right. It is causing a social retardation in terms of a backwardness, a holding back of our social skills. That I completely agree with you. To me, there's no question about it. They're no longer dealing with one another as people. Here, look, you want to know for me what's a nightmare? I recently went to Olive Garden. Okay? Actually had a really good Italian meal, but let that go. There I am with my wonderful wife, my 2 beautiful kids, who I love to death. And my kids are being kids. They're throwing stuff. I have to calm them down. Ashton wants to run around. Ava wants to play with Daddy. In other words, they're being loud. They want to run. They're energetic. And I look around me, and I see tables of a husband and wife, mother and father with 2-3 kids. Everybody's staring at a screen. The father's on an iPhone, the mother's on an iPhone, the kids are on iPads, nobody's talking, there's no social interaction, they order, and then they're staring at a screen. It's like they've lost their souls. Now, where you go from there to mass murder, that's where I disagree with Glenn. To me, video games, look, they're going to play video games. My kids are going to play video games. But to me, it's like TV. You got to limit it. You're the parent. You have to control your kids, what they watch, what they do. That's your job. And when it's time to say no, the answer is no. 617-266-6868. Thank you for that call, Carol. Mike, you're up next. Go ahead, Mike. Did we lose Mike? Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, hi, Jeff.
Hey, Mike.
In that judicial system, the plea of insanity is a legitimate plea. Under your premise, these Lanzas, Elliots, and so on and so forth should be exonerated for any responsibility in murder because of mental illness. Now, I don't know what caused this guy's problem. He's a cold-blooded killer. But shyster lawyers go into our system and they plead mental illness. So under your premise, and the premise of our judicial system, which has become so liberal, these guys would be able to walk out of that courtroom, be institutionalized for 6 months, and back on the street.
I mean, Mike, you make an interesting point. Look, I can just tell you, take Adam Lanza. He's evil. Don't get me wrong, Mike. The guy's clearly evil. But you look at his eyes, you look at his behavior, you look what everybody said about him. I mean, he had very severe Asperger's. Now, maybe even if he was treated, he would still be killing people. We don't know, Mike. But what I'm saying is...
Jeff, what I'm saying is, a lawyer, like Jerry Remy's lawyers and stuff, $3,000 an hour lawyers would go into a jury and say, under the law, you have to acquit and find no responsibility of my client because he is mentally deranged. So where's the punishment? These guys are cold-blooded killers. A quick trial, execute them.
Thank you for that call, Mike. Look, this is a separate issue about whether you should use mental illness or reason of insanity as a defense. That's a separate issue. To me, if you've murdered multiple people, like Adam Lanza, or take this guy Elliot Rodger, you deserve death. Now, they're mentally ill, so they kill themselves. You see, notice the pattern. They usually shoot people up, kill them, and then before they get caught, bang, bullet to the head. So, to me, whether you're mentally ill or not, once you start taking human lives, to me, you belong in the electric chair. But that's a separate issue. I don't want to get sidetracked. To me, the issue now is this prevalence of a virtual reality culture of video games and iPods and iPhones, do you think it's contributing to an amoral youth that is resulting in killing sprees? That's Glenn's essential argument. To me, that's not the problem. That's the symptom. The problem to me is if you look at all of these killings, to me there's one common theme. They're all psychopaths. Cindy, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I agree with you today, but I wanted to ask you, yesterday when I was listening, you were tying in the Santa Barbara kid with, the sexualization of the culture that these kids are growing up in.
Yes.
I didn't agree with you because, again, as you're saying today, I felt yesterday, no, that doesn't make kids do things like this. There has to be an underlying, psychosis. So my question to you is, how do you feel the way you do today, the way you're talking? And, can you comment on what you were saying yesterday? And can you compare?
I mean, Cindy, my argument yesterday, and maybe I didn't articulate it well, so it could be my fault. So it may be just me. But my argument yesterday was essentially this. For 35, 40 years now, I think there's no getting around it. We're handing out condoms to our kids in school as young as 7, 8, 9 years of age. We're teaching them sex education. We're teaching them about homosexuality, lesbianity, transsexuality. There is tremendous peer pressure. Tremendous from the teachers, from the students, from Hollywood, from popular culture, from movies, from everything. If by 14, 15, 16 years of age, if you're still a virgin, you're a loser. That right. Somehow the purpose of life is to lose your virginity. And that college is about sex, and high school is about sex, and life is about sex. And my point was just this. When you so sexualize a culture, don't be surprised when you start getting people who at 22 years of age said, oh my God, I've never slept with a woman in my life. I don't know what it is to have a woman lay on her back for me. Oh my God, I'm such a loser. It doesn't excuse it. What I'm saying is we're destroying our children's innocence. And what we're telling them, think about it. Oh, by 14, 15, 16, if you're not having sex, my God, you're just not living life. Well, 14, 15, they're still kids. Their bodies, their emotions, their brains, they're not ready to really properly understand sex. Sex is a very intimate thing. It's a very personal thing. It should be done when you're more mature. So what we're doing is we're subjecting our kids to all of this permissiveness and promiscuity and perversion. And then we're shocked when you have people now saying, well, you know what? Everybody's having some. I'm not getting some. I'm going to start shooting people.
Well, I agree with what you've been saying, but I don't make the leap from a kid feeling socially disconnected or inferior to other kids because they're not sexually active. I don't make that leap to committing a mass murder without the component of the psychotic. There's a psychosis there. And, it seems to me yesterday that the parents were pretty much on top of this and that they were trying to have intervention take place. What I hadn't seen in the Remy case, I mean, I agree with you earlier. That was absolutely a case of enabling on the part of the parent. And, honestly, at some point you have to say, my kid is evil, my kid is psychotic. Tough love. You have to wash your hands of it and let the system take its course.
Cindy, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. I gotta go. I'm up against it. 9:51 on the great WRKO. Don't touch that dial. More with your calls next. Are video games to blame? I want to hear from you, Boston. 9:56 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. Jay, you're up next. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How about Obama don't care insurance? You start carrying some insurance on some of the individuals that are, mentally ill and et cetera.
Well, Jay, you know what's coming pretty soon is they're going to have sex change operations. That's going to be covered. And even if you're a criminal, you get a sex change operation. So, believe me, and the mentally ill part, that's all part of Obamacare. So, we're going to have to start paying for a lot of this. That's the sad reality. Patrick, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go.
Yeah, hey, how you doing? I'm on the West Coast. Listen to me on the internet.
Oh, where are you calling from, Patrick?
I'm in San Jose, California.
Wow, okay. So how are people in California reacting to the killing, Patrick?
You know, a lot of people are thinking the same thing. Here they're going to go after gun control. Here they're going to do this. Here they're going to do that, instead of looking at the reality of what the real problem was. I mean, I looked at that video of that kid, and I thought, he just seemed like a spoiled little brat with rich parents driving a BMW. And he seems weird. Why would a girl even want him? But besides all that, he was on medications and just kind of strange. But I don't know. It's, our society's just getting so nasty anymore.
Well, to me, look, honestly, this is what I find frightening. If you listen to the whole video, like the YouTube video, I mean, really, the guy sounds like a character out of American Psycho. I'm going to kill him. All you sluts for rejecting me. I'm like, ay. This guy. What the hell went wrong with this guy? The elevator does not go to the top. Ed, you're up next. Go, my friend. I got about a minute.
Yes. Hi, Jeff. Very simple. You know, they say that the video games causes social inadequacy. I think it's the other way around. The social inadequacy causes the babysitting video games. We used to watch TV. Before that, they used to go to the movies and sit there for hours. I mean, and he says that all the killers are caused by video games, Glenn Beck there and everything. I mean, hey, they killed Christ.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, that's evil. I mean, if they kill Jesus, evil people will kill anybody. I gotta go, my friends. Same time, same place. See you all tomorrow. And remember, together, we're beating liberals one day at a time.
In between.
Half of the Democrat Party is going to take this seriously, and half of them are going to be outraged.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.